Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Now we need to certify that an closed meeting just concluded. Nothing was discussed except the matter specifically identified in the motion to convene in a closed meeting and lawfully permitted to be so discussed under the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act cited in that motion. Need to certify this by roll call vote. Go with Dr. Sinha.
Yes. Yes.
Mason.
Yes.
Dr. Mr. Polly. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Over the past several weeks, the school board has met to discuss the options for selecting a search firm. I believe we are ready for a decision. Is there a motion regarding a recommendation?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to recommend that we go with Ray and Associates, Inc. as our search firm for the search for superintendent.
Okay.
Second.
And there's a second. Is there any additional discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Okay. Ray and Associates will be helping us with our superintendent search. All right. All will rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We need to amend the agenda to add item C3, federally calculated SOL results, add an addendum to item D2, the personnel report, and add item G1, policy 2CB-R, 2CC-R guidelines for community resource persons / school volunteers, and replace item H3, policy LBD, home instruction, with a revised agenda report and attachment. Is there a motion to amend the agenda?
So moved.
Second. Any additional discussion? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay. Okay, so that brings us to Part B, public comments, and we do have public comments. Before I call people up, I need to review our policy. Persons appearing before the school board will not be allowed to campaign for public office or promote private business ventures and should not use profanity or vulgar language or gestures, make comments about a public official or an employee that are not related to his or her official duties, engage in behavior that disrupts the meeting or intimidates others, or address the school board on issues that do not concern the services, policies, role, and/or responsibilities of the school board. Individual speakers shall limit their comments to 3 minutes. The speaker representing a group shall limit his comments to 5 minutes. The representative shall identify the group at the beginning of his or her presentation. A group may have no more than one spokesperson. The total allotted time for public comments at school board meetings is 30 minutes. Public comments are reserved for the public to provide input. The board does not respond to comments, answer questions, or otherwise engage in discussion at this time. Up is Mr. Lowe's. Set up again, I probably
adjust it a little. Good evening to all of you, and it's nice to be with you once again. As always, thank you so much for your service to the students and staff of Lynchburg City Schools, as well as the greater Lynchburg community. For those of you who are new, my name is Carl Luce, and I am the president of the Lynchburg Education Association, and I am honored to be here tonight as we kick off another successful school year. Although this year is just getting started, I know preparations are already underway for the 2018-2019 school year. In June, I came before you and spoke of our organization's motto for this year, SOS, Staff Over Stuff. As we begin to look at the budget process for the next school year, the item that must be first and foremost on this division's agenda is employee compensation. At convocation last week, a brilliant man stated the fact simply and eloquently: you get what you pay for. At the Lynchburg Education Foundation breakfast last spring, Dr. Brabrand discussed the fact that there are 15 city districts in the state of Virginia, districts where we are doing an apples-to-apples comparison of student achievement from Bristol to Winchester. From 2014 to 2016, Lynchburg had the second highest SOL pass rate growth in reading and had the highest growth in math of all of these districts. Yet when you compare salaries, Lynchburg had the second lowest salary for beginning teachers, as well as the second lowest salary for teachers with 20 years or more experience. If we're looking at the top of the pay scale, teachers with 20 years, the average is just over $47,000 a year here in Lynchburg. The average state salary, not the 20-year teacher average, but the overall average for a state teacher in Virginia is $51,000, and the national average is more than $58,000. That puts our experienced teachers more than $11,000 behind the national average. And as bad as it is for our teachers, it's worse for our educational support personnel. According to MIT, a living wage for an adult is $10.87 an hour. Lynchburg pays its bus assistants, custodians, library assistants, instructional assistants, and secretaries all less than that on average. And if you're an adult with 3 children in one of these jobs, forget about a living wage, you're not even making the poverty wage. But this is a new day. This is a new board with new leadership in the division. This is our chance to take the bull by the horns instead of continuing to kick the can down the road. The LEA has a compensation committee that stands ready, willing, and able to work with the division in developing a plan that increases compensation in both the short term and in the long term by putting steps back into place. To put it bluntly, anything short of a step plan that recognizes years of service for all employees would be a failure of this division. The budget has a lot of moving parts, and there are needs in all areas of our division. We acknowledge that and support those needs. But as this division and this board create a budget for the 2018-2019 school year, first and foremost in everyone's mind should be SOS, staff over stuff. Thank you.
With that, we will move to item C, agenda item C, special presentation, Paul Monroe Elementary School. Dr. Massey?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. The Virginia Index of Performance program recognizes schools and school divisions for the achievement of excellence goals established by the Governor and Board of Education and provides incentives for continuous improvement. Paul Monroe Elementary School has been selected to receive the 2016-17 Virginia Index Performance Board of Education Distinguished Achievement Award based upon data from school years 2014-15 and 2015-16. Schools that receive this award are fully accredited and have made significant progress toward educational goals as established by the Governor and the Board of Education. At this time, I would like to ask that Donna Bear, principal of Paul Monroe Elementary School, come to the podium, and also our chairman, Mike Nillis. If you'll bear with me, this is such a momentous occasion that I think we need to read this award as written and signed by Billy Kennedy, the President of the State Board of Education of Virginia, and Stephen R. Staples, the Superintendent of Public Instruction. Virginia Board of Education Distinguished Achievement Award presented in 2017 to Paul Monroe Elementary School, Lynchburg City Public Schools. Whereas the Board of Education established the Virginia Index of Performance to provide incentives and recognitions for public schools and school divisions that exceed the minimum requirements for learning and achievement of the Commonwealth's rigorous Standards of Learning program. And whereas the Virginia Index of Performance measures the progress of students from competence toward advanced proficiency and excellence in reading, mathematics, science, and history and social science, and on other indicators of school and school performance, and recognizes schools and school divisions for academic excellence. And whereas to qualify for recognition under this program, achievement of the students in a school or school division must exceed the Commonwealth's accreditation standards and the minimum federal accountability requirements. And whereas recognition also requires a pursuit of academic excellence resulting in an increasing percentage of students demonstrating advanced proficiency across the curriculum, and whereas to qualify for recognition, schools and school divisions also must expand opportunities for learning and achievement, as evidenced by progress on multiple indicators of school and student performance. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education recognize the achievements of these objectives by awarding this 2016 Board of Education Distinguished Achievement Award to Paul Monroe Elementary School. I'll ask the chairman to present that dog bear.
Congratulations.
On behalf of the Paul Monroe faculty and staff, I am humbled, honored, and at the same time excited to accept the VDOE Distinguished Achievement Award. I would like to recognize the presence of my team. Without their hard work, dedication, and belief that every child can succeed, we would not be standing here tonight. Thank all of you. Thank you, team.
Excellent.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, very good. Very good. So we move to item C2 now. This is an update on schools denied accreditation. This is Dr. Massey.
May I preface my remarks by saying that this is for schools denied accreditation in 2016 and 2017. It is a requirement, as you know, that we make mention of this at a school board meeting. Preliminary SOL results from the Virginia Department of Education have been released for review by school divisions. Official accreditation ratings will not be released by VDOE until September the 13th, 2017. Based on these preliminary results, we are pleased to report that we are anticipating that T.C. Miller Elementary School will not only meet but exceed state benchmarks for English, math, science, and history, and once again be fully accredited. While the unofficial results do not indicate that Lincoln Middle School will be fully accredited, the data does indicate that the school will meet the accreditation benchmarks for science and history, and that English and math scores improved slightly from the previous year, placing the school back on a growth trajectory that will lead to being fully accredited. As part of the requirements for schools denied accreditation in the Commonwealth, the Lincoln Middle School administrators and central office staff, including the superintendent, met on June 24, 2017, with Mrs. Bev Rabel, Director of the Office of School Improvement from VDOE. The T.C. Miller principal was not included, as we anticipate that school being fully accredited for 2017-2018. During this meeting, the new principal for Lincoln Middle School, Karen Blay, and Mr. Ryan White, assistant principal at Lincoln Middle School, provided Mrs. Rabel with evidence of the work that is being done during the summer in preparation for the 2017-2018 school year. Teacher teams for English and math have been meeting to analyze data from 2016-2017 in order to make decisions about what is working and what new initiatives and actions need to be implemented to further accelerate the growth in student achievement needed to return to full accreditation status. With new leadership from Mrs. Blay and the work that we have already witnessed that she has accomplished since her official arrival on July 1, we're excited about the opportunity for sustained growth and the return of Lincoln Middle School to a fully accredited status. Thank you.
Board member questions or comments? If not, we'll move to item C3, the federally calculated SOL results. This Dr. Massey.
Yes, sir. The federally calculated SOL results have been released today, and I've asked Dr. April Bruce to come and present those results to you at this time and share that information. Dr. Bruce.
This morning, the Virginia Department of Education released our federally calculated SOL scores, and tonight I'll be sharing just a little bit of background information and some of those scores with you. So just a quick review, and some of you all are new to this. We are currently under two separate systems for school accountability. One of those is the state accreditation system. The other one is the federal system. And both of these are based on results of the Standards of Learning test. There are key differences between them. We'll go over those briefly here in just a moment. State accreditation targets, we have four. We have one for English, which is 75% pass rate. Math, social studies, and science are a 70% pass rate target. And these are the state system pass rates. These are for accreditation. The passing rate stays constant. It doesn't change from year to year. Subgroup data is not, at the current time, a part of accreditation. However, they are working at the state level to change our accreditation system and our accountability system to more match or merge the state and the federal systems. So we're thinking that in the near future, possibly by next year, that we will be looking at some subgroup data for accreditation as well. And like Dr. Massey said earlier, the state plans to release accreditation ratings on September 13th, so we will have that information then. So a little bit of background on the federal accountability side. The Every Student Succeeds Act, known as ESSA, E-S-S-A, was signed by President Obama December 10th, 2015. It basically reauthorized the Federal Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which was ESEA. VDOE is working with the U.S. Department of Education to merge those two different accountability systems, the state and the federal systems, so that we'll have something a little bit more easily understood. There were no federal targets set for 2016-17 like there have been in the past, and no new schools will be designated as priority or focus schools, and we'll talk about that just in a few minutes. Just kind of as a review, the federal scores are given to us in different ways. So we have the all pass rates, and then we have pass rates for all of the subgroups as well. Those subgroups are listed for you. They include all students. GAP Group 1 lists, those are students with disabilities, economically disadvantaged, and English language learning students. All of those are GAP Group 1. GAP Group 2 are our black students. GAP Group 3 is Hispanic. We also look at Asian, economically disadvantaged, students with disabilities, and white students. It is also important to note that many students fall into numerous categories. So they kind of count in different places, sometimes numerous times. A lot of folks, when we start showing scores, the question comes up, why are state numbers and federal numbers different? So it gets very complex to explain all of that, but I did a chart that kind of explains a little bit. There is a state column and a federal column, and the check mark shows what we can do to adjust a pass rate. So if you look at the first one, failing scores earned by students who transfer in from another school division are excluded. That's good for state and federal. Failing scores earned by students who transfer in from another LCS school. Federal folks, we'll count that as we actually don't look at that score at all. It's completely thrown out. Failing scores earned by students who receive ESL services but have been in Virginia less than 11 semesters. If they fail, those scores are excluded. The state recognizes that. There are other things there listed. The VAP collections, those are for our severely disabled students that do a portfolio type assessment of what they're working on. And at the federal level, there's a 1% cap. If we go over that 1% cap, we have to reassign those as failing scores. The state doesn't make us do that. So there are some significant differences there. One of the bigger things that has come up in the last couple of years, high schools are using substitute tests for reading and writing as recognized by the Virginia Department of Education, and we're using work keys, which is a reading and writing test, and those passing scores are recognized at the state level but not at the federal level. So you'll see the English scores for the high schools are a little higher at the state level than they would be federal. And then the other big one that you all have probably heard a little bit about are recovery points. We put students in, if they fail a test, we get them in a really strong remediation program so the next time they take a test, hopefully they'll get through that and pass. At the state level, we kind of get bonus points if they pass. The federal accountability system does not recognize that. So that's kind of a brief explanation on why a lot of times you'll see our state scores are a little higher than the federal scores. A couple of other things just to note, all students must be tested. This includes all of our students that are outplaced in private facilities, if they're on homebound, if they're incarcerated, new to Virginia, new to the U.S., and all other students enrolled in Lynchburg City Schools. We test them all. And if we don't test them, it counts against a participation rate, which is something that the federal accountability system looks at as well. Just a little bit of information on the focus schools and priority schools. The initial qualification for a focus school means that they're towards the bottom 10% of schools that have low gap group performance in reading and math. A priority school is the bottom 5% of schools with low reading and math scores. And I will say they're Title I schools. They're only looking at the bottom 5% of Title I schools. The state will continue to support schools that we have that are in focus and priority status. And currently, at this time, we've got Bass as a focus school, and Perrymont and Deerington are priority schools. And again, on September 13th, not only will the state release the accreditation ratings, they'll also release to us any kind of status that we've got, any schools that we have exiting priority or focus status. So we'll find that out. We will not have any new schools entering because they're not having new schools entering this year. Okay, now for all the numbers. And I know this is a lot, so I've tried to summarize a bit. So looking at our math results by school, we've put the 15-16 and the 16-17 pass rates up. We have 9 schools that have had positive gains in math. Perrymont, T.C. Miller, E.C. Glass had really, really good gains. So we're looking at what they did there to hopefully replicate that in other locations. Looking at federal reading results, we had 7 schools with positive gains in reading. Perrymont and T.C. Miller, really great gains, as you can see there. E.C. Glass as well. Writing is only given to 8th graders and 10th graders. It has been taken out of the elementary schools, so this just reflects our secondary schools. We saw slight gains at Dunbar and E.C. Glass and a 10-point gain at Lincoln Middle. With our history results, 8 schools saw gains in history. Deerington, Bass, R.S. Payne saw really good gains. Lincoln, Perrymont, T.C. Miller, all double-digit gains. And our federal science results. 8 schools again saw gains in science, great gains at Perrymont, double-digit gains at Deerington and T.C. Miller. And kind of pulling that all together, You've heard the words Perrymont and T.C. Miller a couple of times tonight. Perrymont had growth in all 4 areas, and T.C. Miller had double-digit gains in all 4 areas. To put that in perspective as how we are comparing to the state, the following slides break the pass rates up by subgroup. And again, keep in mind that some students fall into more than one subgroup. This is 15-16, showing all of the pass rates for all students. Gap Group 2, which is black students, economically disadvantaged, students with disabilities, and white students. And it shows the gains at the state level and for Lynchburg City Schools. And you'll see there's not a lot of loss or gain on either side. This is for reading. In Lynchburg, we were pretty flat. The state was as well in a couple of areas. Writing results. Writing is something we're continuing to work on, especially at the middle school level. History, we did see a little bit of gain there in each of the subgroups. And science, again, both the state and Lynchburg City Schools pretty flat on the scores there. And next steps for us, of course, these just came out this morning. We have been doing our own hand calculations for quite some time, and we are looking at more specific results. We get results called report by question results, and those go to the schools, and they're able to identify the strands within a topic where students would be either weak or strong, and they're able to tailor remediation efforts and classroom instruction to meet the needs of the students. So that's something that we're working with teachers on at this point. The folks that I work with in testing are the ones responsible for getting those reports in the hands of our teachers. So that is going on now, and we will have a lot more work to do as more reports start coming out. And again, accreditation information and any information about schools, priority focus schools exiting that status will come out on September 13th. Any questions?
Board member questions or comments? Dr. Coleman?
I just would like to acknowledge, as I show all of us, Dr. Amy Huskins and T.C. Miller, that is, just has my full focus of, that's wonderful. Thank you for the extra data that you gave us to help us to appreciate the federal calculations, pass rate variables. That's very helpful to me. And I'm sure we're going to figure out what's going on at Sandusky Middle and Heritage High.
Ms. Morrison.
I appreciate the information, and thank you for pulling it together so quickly to get it this morning and to have this for us tonight. Thank you. I have to make the comments that I know our teachers are working hard. I know that all the staff and employees of Lynchburg City Schools are working hard. I do believe that our students can learn, and what I'm perplexed is why we're not doing better. These scores are unacceptable, and we've got to figure out as a board what we can do to help our students and do better. You see the work of the staff. They are working hard. They give up their Saturdays. They give up their afternoons. They give up, go into the community and meet, and all of that. They're working so hard. So we as a board have to figure out what it is that we're not doing. And that's some hard questions that I think we're going to have to ask ourselves and look at what we're using in curriculum. Is it right? Is it meeting our needs? And I'm disappointed that we're not doing better.
Dr. Brennan?
I'd just like to second what Ms. Morrison was saying. I think I've had a chance to meet with some of the principals at different schools in the last several weeks, and I think there's nothing that's more disappointing for them to have their schools not be accredited, because they do work so hard the principals work on this, the teachers work on this. Is not due to lack of effort for this to happen. And I know that they want it fixed as much, if not more, than we do. I have to point out, though, that when you look at the data for the state versus our district, it's pretty striking that overall there's about a 10% difference in all student passing rates. And we're about 10 points behind the average for all areas. There's about a 20-point difference in the achievement gap between black and white students in the state pretty much overall. Whereas in our area, there's about varying between 15 and 30% or point difference between the difference between black and white students and those who are economically disadvantaged. And I think that this is, as many people in the community point out, this has been a problem for a long time. This is not going to be fixed overnight. But I do think when we say, you know, on our presentation what the next steps will be, I think it has to be more than just waiting for the next numbers to come out. And I think we as a board need to be assertive and help the teachers and the principals decide really what the next step is going to be to change this, because it hasn't changed in a long time, and we need to fix it. It's going to take a long time. We know the teachers are dedicated, the principals are to it, so I just hope that we as a board will be able to help to change this and start making some steps pretty soon to have an impact on it. Thank you.
You know, I'll echo that. It's impressive what some of the schools have done. It's not encouraging what's going on at some of these other schools, especially with the assessments that have been developed that were advertised as being predictors. You know, my question is, were these schools, were the teachers, were they surprised? I'm not asking for an answer, but were they surprised at the results based on the assessments and stuff that they were getting that were supposed to predict and help guide the curriculum and instruction and reinforce things that needed to be reinforced? Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that the board wants to do something. Frankly, I have no idea what to do at this point, but this is disappointing overall, and you know, I've heard I guess this is my 5th year on the board, and I've heard pretty much the same thing every year about we need to do more work and need to look into this and figure out what's going on. But I'm not seeing it. So, Dr. Coleman.
Yeah, I think as we deal with the obvious statements that have been made, I again want to underscore whatever the robust, constant activity that was going on at T.C. Miller needs to be fully understood, appreciated, shared, and looked into. And the other piece I want to comment on, that you indicated that it's coming at the state level, the subgroup dynamic factoring into accreditation of the school. We're not there now, but at the state level, they're looking into that, which would address, if you're doing better with some of these gaps, that can move you in the proper direction. And so knowing that, I'm sure that the board members will be more specific in terms of suggestions that we need to do to get what we need to do. And when we're having this conversation, our students at the top that are doing well, we want them to continue to do well and offer them everything that they need. And these scores are wonderful. And as we seek to deal with some of the other issues, it is simply in helping us to become championship level. So Dr. Bruce, thank you for your diligence. I don't know if there's anybody better at being able to bring this to us. We got a lot of work to do.
Ms. Snyder.
Thank you for the numbers. I echo the statements. I'm disappointed in some of the numbers. I'm hopeful when I look at the numbers of some of these other schools that you've already pointed out. And I think it's of note to point out that several of those schools are the ones that were working under priority schools or focus schools and have had a lot of attention the last couple years. So I think it'll be easy to pinpoint what they've done and to replicate it at other schools, with a couple of exceptions here and there, but the numbers aren't drastic. You know, with the Darrington maybe down a point or two. I do find hope also in the fact that we as a board had approved a couple years ago putting instructional assistants in kindergarten and then in first grade. So within the next year or two, I'm hoping when we see those SOL scores from those third graders that are rising up through that one-on-one work that they've been able to do with their teachers and their instructional assistants and pinpointing, you know, every child by name, finding out their need and having more staff in the classroom to help them. I'm hopeful that pretty soon we're going to be able to see those numbers, and if we can consistently carry those kids through, you know, that transition from elementary school to middle school and then to high school, that hopefully we will be on that path of those numbers going up. And, you know, it's kind of always said you're putting Band-Aids along the way, but now we're getting them from the start and we're able to identify them and get them remediation early on. So I'm hopeful. I'm disappointed now, but I am hopeful seeing that. So as taking more looks down the line as a board, do we look at having more boots on the ground? Is that what helps? As opposed to a program or a system, something like that? Is it that one-on-one? So I think those are things that we do need to look at and finding out what has worked. Thanks.
Mr. Polly? Okay. I just want to clarify that I know, and I've seen the individual teachers are working extremely hard, putting in extra effort, and like I said at the convocation, they're not just going the extra mile, they're going extra miles for these students. And I find that knowing the effort that their individual teachers are putting in, that, you know, these school results are frustrating, to say the least. So. Okay. Thank you.
I would like to
Dr.
say
Massey?
I appreciate the comments that have been made, and I agree with everything that's been said. I think as to what you can do as a board is to have high expectations, continue to have high expectations, and accept nothing than an excellent program. As a board, that's what I recommend that you do. After all, as far as having hands-on in the classroom, that's not the function of a board, as you know. Your job is to set policy, and our job is to carry out that policy, and I'm hearing loud and clear that you expect a fully accredited school system, which is not unreasonable expectation. And that is what we're about doing. We're already working on this, and some of these comments are very insightful and very intuitive on your part. One thing that you can do is look at calendars. I talked about this today. We have 180 days of school. Time on task is precious. We need to reassess our calendars and look at the time on task, a very simple thing. Frankly, in my opinion, early dismissal days are a waste of time for everybody. It's a wasted day instructionally. We need to be in school all day, every day that we can. However, I do say the day you get out for winter break and the last day of school might be an exception to that. But the rest of the time we need to go to school and make every minute of the day count. And before we talk about such things as extending the school day or having more than 180 days, we need to make the days that we have count. And the comment that was made by one of the board members to replicate what's going on in the good schools and the schools that are having good results, I mean, they're all good, but the schools that are having good results, to replicate them in the other schools, that just makes a lot of sense. And I was talking to the T.C. Miller principal about this the other day when she was having a celebration at a breakfast, and she's very willing to do that. So we need to take those folks up on that, and to not get too long-winded about this thing, but we're pretty fired up about getting better here. That's what you ask us to do, and that's what we want to do. But you'll have to, and we won't make great changes without running it by the school board. But if we expect to keep things as they are and expect a different result, it is not going to happen. We are going to have to change the whole approach on instruction here in some of our schools. And I'm not talking about dismissing people. I'm talking about working smarter And resources. We need to reassess our resources in the division and make sure we're putting most of our resources right down there in the classroom where the children are. And so we're in the process of reassessing what resources we have and seeing if we can't put more resources in the classroom. But when we come with the changes, I hope that you'll support us in them, and of course we'll not surprise you. We'll not do something and then you hear about it on the street. We'll run it by you guys because we have to have this board with us, or we won't get anywhere with any change. But I don't want folks in general sometimes resist change, and they feel have an uncertainty, or they feel insecure. We want to make sure that that this change needs to come from the ground up. So I'm going to go to the teachers and the principals in the schools that are doing great and get those ideas, and we're going to work with the other fine individuals that are in these other schools. We have great people in all these schools, and there is no reason why we cannot be fully accredited in every school in the division. It's not an unreasonable expectation. We need to, first of all, I hear yet about people complaining about the SOLs. We need to embrace those SOLs. That's what we're being judged by. That's what we're being measured by, and we need to embrace it. And this achievement gap, though, is something that has to be dealt with. It is. We identified this back in 2012 as the biggest problem in this school division. Number one, we need to address it because it's the right thing to do. These folks can learn, they can do well, they can excel, and we need to see that they do, because the lack of an education will result in incarceration or in some public assistance program that taxpaying folks are paying for. We need to see our children through to a good job, a good education, so they're productive members of society and paying tax-paying people. The other reason we need to do it is we're never going to be accredited in our lifetime, much less a year from now or 2 years from now, if we don't deal with this achievement gap. It has to be dealt with. And next year, according to what Mr. Rudder tells me, and Dr. Bruce and Dr. McLean, these accreditation standards are going to address the achievement gap. We need to embrace that, because that is our biggest problem. Thanks, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Dr. Sena.
If I could just add one thing. I really like what you said about working smarter. And towards that end, I was, and this has come up somewhat a bit before, but I would like to see some kind of assessment now overall of the last 2 years with the LOLE, COLE. How effective has it been? Has there been the return on investment? Because, and I'll admit, I don't know as much about it as I should, perhaps, but it seems to me it puts quite a lot of pressure on teachers, quite a lot of activity and work and effort. And are we just burning out our teachers and losing them? If we're not seeing the results in the test scores, maybe it's time to look at that and see if that can be tweaked or adjusted or modified in some way.
Yes, ma'am, and we are waist deep in dealing with that right now. We're working on a matter to provide great relief to teachers in this area, which we will be glad to explain to you at a later board meeting. But we are really working hard on that very point. That is a very good point.
Ms. Mason?
Dr. Mason, I just wanted to say thank you for those comments. I think you were just very transparent about some issues that sometimes we tend to dance around, or, that are uncomfortable, and we need to start having the uncomfortable conversations. This is really bittersweet for me because you have to celebrate T.C. Miller and schools that are making those amazing achievements, but you also have to say, our other scores are unacceptable. The disparate gap between black and white students is just something that we can't allow. So I'm happy that we're having this conversation at the beginning of the year, and it seems like we're all on board to do some things differently, because that is a definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So thank you for that.
We'll move on to the consent agenda, which includes the school board meeting minutes from August 1st, personnel report and addendum, and regulation JFC-R, standards of student conduct. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. It's approved. Thank you. Well, that brings us to student representative comments. And welcome. From Heritage, we have Manan Shah. Welcome. I don't know if either of you have anything to present, or and I'm not putting you on the spot, so you can.
I don't have a presentation today, but based on what you guys were saying about the achievement gap and just that sort of thing, from a student perspective, I think the aspects that really result in this achievement gap is motivation and learning style. I think the reason why there's an achievement gap between the white and Hispanic and African American. I think it's because it's motivation. When they come to school, their families, they're not that motivated when they go to school, because they have some family disputes. So they're not, like, sometimes they come to school starving, sometimes they're just in a bad mood because something happened in their family. And I think there should be a better system to that to motivate just those specific students, so that they can have a better perspective on education and how to handle it. And I think at Heritage, the biggest problem is probably behavior. There are really disruptive students there, and from my perspective, I think the teacher-student relationship is it's not as great as if it was a student-student relationship. So I'm trying to say, if a student tutors a student tutors another student, I think that would be more effective, because they're both the same age. They both have it's just a connection. And between the teacher and student, it's not that effective because age gap, generation gap. And the final point is learning style. There's 3 different learning styles: visual, auditory, kinesthetic. I think if we put those students in the same type of class, so like students in a kinesthetic learning class, or students in an auditory learning class, or students in a visual learning class, I think that would be more effective, because they're all learning the same way. So that's my outlook on, in my perspective on this achievement gap.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And it's Kennedy? Yes. Robertson from EC Glass.
Yes.
And looks like you're going to be here for the volleyball season.
Yes, probably.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Looking forward to hearing what's going on at Glass, and feel free to chime in. I mean, and really, for both you are student reps on the school board, and if there's an issue and you can provide a student perspective, you're invited, please. So, looking forward to hearing from you throughout the year. Thank you. So that brings us to school board committee reports. I don't know, it is the middle of summer, so I don't think the committees have been very active right now. So And if not, we can move to item G, unfinished business. And this is regards to policy IICB-R and IICC-R guidelines for community resource persons, school volunteers. On April 18th, 2017, the school board approved changes to policy, the aforementioned policy guidelines for community resource persons, school volunteers. With the approval of that policy, the school administration was directed to work with legal counsel to develop guidelines that would assist the superintendent when considering exceptions for applications submitted by individuals with felony charges whose applications had been denied. During the development of those guidelines, questions have been raised regarding the financial impact of and coverage for liability insurance. The school board leadership believes it's prudent to remove the policy approved on April 18, 2017 and adopt the previous version of this policy. This matter will be reviewed within 90 days. The information that became available regarding the proposed policy was pretty significant from a liability protection point of view. So, I don't know, there is a recommendation to adopt the August 18, 2015 version of the policy in its place at this point, and the matter's open for discussion.
We need a motion first.
Right now we're just discussing, and we take a motion as appropriate, and then we'll discuss the motion. So if there's no discussion, then is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Well, it's been moved and seconded to adopt the August 18, 2015 version of the policy guidelines for community resource persons, school volunteers. Is there any additional discussion? All in favor?
I think that was going to make a comment.
I just wanted to see.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just, for the public that may be viewing, I think the chair used the appropriate language, prudent, that once the board becomes aware of particulars that will affect the entire school division, we have to take a serious look at that. So we do not want to give false hope that in 90 days anything will be different. But we desperately and definitely needed to look seriously at the realities of insurance, and in 90 days we'll come back with this, and if there's nothing that would speak different to what the wisdom of the board has come up with, then the policy will stay as it is. And I just wanted to make sure that we articulate that this was driven from some deeper realities than we were aware of. And if there's something that can come up that can give us something else, then we can look at it. But if not, it is prudent and the wisdom of the board. So no one has done anything behind the scenes in any negative, underhanded type of way. And I think that the community should respect and appreciate the diligence of this board to do what is in the best interest of our school division.
Okay. So there's been a motion and a second. Is that right? Okay. And any additional discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay. Thank you. That brings us to new business, hearing officers. This is agenda item H1. Mr. Copeland or Dr. Massey?
Let's go have Ms. G come up and briefly explains this, as she deals with a lot of the grievances, and it will help you understand how a hearing officer can assist you if you feel the need for one.
Hearing officers are used under the teacher grievance policy. They're not used on the other. The law used to be a fact-finding panel, and the state has gone to a hearing officer, which is fabulous because it's a different process for you, and it's a whole lot less cumbersome. Hopefully we would never need to use this, but when teachers have a grievance or when teachers are being dismissed, they have a right to have a hearing before you or they have a hearing before a hearing officer. You need a list of hearing officers approved so that you could pull from them. You don't have to use anybody that's on the list. You don't use every one of them. When you get in certain situations, you would decide who you'd like to call. There are many times that people turn you down and they're not available, so you only have a certain amount of time under the grievance policy to have this completed and to conduct your hearing. So you want to already have your approved list ready, so that if you want to go that route, or you choose to go that route, that you have these people ready. You can look at these on a yearly basis. You can add to them. I've already had a volunteer that when he leaves, he would like to be added to our list. So it's somebody that we were sure that we put people on this that are knowledgeable about education and the process of schools. I wanted to make sure that we had people that were going to listen to both sides and they were going to be fair in their judgment, because everybody needs to have the same opportunity to be heard. I've been asked, there have been schools that have called me because they are in a bind and they can't find anybody to conduct their hearings. You always have the option to hear it yourself, that you are the group that listens and you don't have a hearing officer. You've got the policy in front of you about the process and all that, and we'd walk through that and I'd help you with it. This is just your list of people that you can choose from if we get to that route.
Okay.
Any questions?
Board member, Dr. Brennan?
Just for clarification, because I'm not familiar with the policy or with some of the individuals, so do these folks rotate off? Is there a term to it? And can you give us a little bit of background to some of the people who are on the list? Just their teachers, their former board members, who are the individuals?
This is the first list that's been approved by this board, so you can decide whether they rotate off or they don't, or you update. There are times that there are a couple that I've called and they were like, they'll probably do it for a couple of years because they're tired. We use them in our system. We have principals, we have assistant principals, we have people who have served at central office, they were deputy superintendents, they're assistant superintendents. We have former board members because they were very reputable in the community and they know the process that goes through here. They'd probably sat in on at least one hearing, so it's a very formal process. This is not an easy task. This is not an easy job for somebody to do. So finding somebody to do it is a task in itself because it's very cumbersome. We do have, like Ms. Waller was a teacher, but she was also a board member. We had somebody that served as an AD, and so he was in an administrative piece, plus he was a teacher, but is a very fair person. That's kind of the piece that I was very strong on, is this person going to listen to both sides and be very fair.
Great, thank you.
Other questions, comments? Okay, and just to be clear, this is optional. The board can decide if they want to use a hearing officer for a particular hearing or not.
That's right. It can be a case by case. If one comes to you, you decide. You would decide whether you want to hear it or not.
Right. So this is for information tonight, and will come to us for a vote at our next meeting in September. Any other questions? Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thanks.
That brings us to item H2, Administrative Regulation 7-36, fees, deposits, materials, reimbursements. This is for information tonight with action at our next meeting. Dr. McLean.
Good evening.
Right.
This follows on July 11th, where the board had approved an updated policy and regulation to replace some previous ones around student fees, fines, and charges. In that process, we neglected to name one of the regulations that should have been removed that was covered by the new policy and regulation. Since they weren't officially put before the board previously, it comes back to you with this one, R7-63, to remove it as well. It is now covered, so this is basically a procedural matter to clean up that action from July.
Board member questions or comments? That could go into consent agenda. No, that was my next comment or question. Put it on the consent agenda. Okay. Thank you. Now we are moving to policy LBD, home instruction. Dr. McLean?
Yes, sir. So one of the actions by the General Assembly this past year was to update some of the requirements around notification and testing options for families who choose home instruction. And so this is an update to the policy, replacing the old one, that in essence just includes that language that is an update to the state code. More specifically, it's around AP, PSAT types of tests that we need to notify parents of students who are receiving home instruction their ability to participate in those exams and what that process is. So we have a letter that explains that to folks. This is just putting that into policy and creating that update.
This looks pretty routine, just match updating to the state code. Just put this on the consent agenda also. Okay. Okay. It brings us to Dr. Massey. You get a chance to talk.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I would like to mention we've had 2 very good days, first day of school. I had a excitement yesterday when I thought our enrollment wasn't going to be what it needed to be, but today we have 7,997 students in school. Don't take that as being particularly significant. It's an indication of how many we're going to have by the September 15th when it starts in earnest. But we generally take a September roll too, but we get one every day. So and we budgeted, for your information, 7,967. So it's 30 over today what you budgeted for. So as long as we stay in the positive, we're good. I would like to say yesterday at the opening day, we had a very good response to the Men to School program. 134 men participated in meeting and greeting our students, and the principals tell me that the students, the parents, the staff, everyone involved really appreciated that and enjoyed it, and particularly the students enjoyed it. I'd like to thank Reverend Jonathan Willis and Dr. James Coleman and Councilman Sterling Wilder for a good job putting that together. And with your permission, I'd like to invite those folks to our next school board meeting to accept our thanks for that. I might mention that we have some back to school nights. I'd like to mention, I am going to send this out tomorrow. Darrington, Heritage, and Sheffield Elementary Schools will hold their back to school night on August the 29th. Lincoln will be on August the 31st. It's on the LCS calendar located at www.lcsedu.net. And some things to look forward to the beginning of September. September the 1st is early dismissal. I've already told you what I think about that. And there is no school on Labor Day, September the 4th. September the 9th is Day in the Park, and all elementary and middle school string students will be performing at 10 a.m. and 10:45 a.m. And our high school varsity athletic events are posted on our website. So I'm going to be attending some of those and hope you all will too. Thank you, sir. Oh, one other thing, I'm sorry. The eclipse. On Monday, August the 21st, all of North America will be treated to an eclipse of the sun. This unique phenomenon involving the moon covering the sun has not happened to this extent in the United States since 1979. Lynchburg City Schools is planning to make this day a fun and engaging educational event for our students by organizing safe activities in all our schools. The Lynchburg City Schools Education Foundation has provided the funding for Lynchburg City Schools to purchase ISO-rated and CE-certified solar eclipse glasses for every student and every staff member in the division. The countdown for the partial eclipse will begin at 1:14 p.m. and end at 4:02 p.m., reaching the maximum at 2:30 2:41 p.m. The bus dismissals, school dismissals will remain the same. We're all working together to make this a fun, safe, and meaningful experience for our students and staff. Many thanks to the Education Foundation for doing that, and the schools have done a great job. And Maria Yeager has done a wonderful job coordinating that out of our office. It's something that space geeks like me are really into. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to board comments. Ms. Snyder?
I had the honor of going to one of the Fill the Bus days at Walmart. I was able to be there with Dr. Massey for a little bit, and we were able to get a lot of donations for the kids, and it was fun to reach out to the community and see the people that were going in for back to school shopping for themselves and just asking if they could, buy an extra pack of pencils or a notebook, and how many people that were willing to do that after we had talked to them and given them a supply list. Were able to come and drop some donations off, and at least our side, we had a lot in the box.
We did all right.
Yeah, we did pretty good. I was able to go to convocation, and I appreciated Dr. Nillis's comments and Mayor Joan Foster taking the time to be there, and just the excitement that's there every year. I always enjoy going to that. And I'm also looking forward to the eclipse as well. I appreciated your comments about the safety, because I had seen some things going around about glasses that were not going to be up to par, and eyes being damaged. So as a parent, I got a little bit nervous about that, but we were able to verify that we have the safe glasses, and everything will be safe, and it'll be fun, it'll be educational, and thank you for that opportunity.
Dr. Sena?
I too was able to work the Fill the Bus event, and it was really nice. And I just have to say I was really pleased with the response from the community. People, bought things and filled up that box, and it really touched me to see the way we were supported by the community with their wallets. First day of school, I got positive feedback about our new principal at Sandusky Middle School. My father was very pleased about the motto, and he's just really happy. He had some concerns previously about some issues there, so that's off to a good start. And I too am so excited for the eclipse. I took a vacation day and looking forward to hanging out with the students that afternoon. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Good. Okay, thank you. Mr. Polly?
And just briefly, at the end of the last board meeting, I forgot to mention, I took a trip to Charlottesville towards the end of July for the VSBA Legislative Positions Committee, which I'm a member of, and we just hear different proposals from divisions from across the state that they want to get in front of the General Assembly. I represented the Southern District there, and so just wanted to inform the board, and if you have any questions, I can forward you some of the information that I received at that time.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. Dr. Brennan, sorry.
Just as we like to recognize the great accomplishment of the schools, I also want to recognize some support from the community, because we appreciate what they do for us, for the board, and for the schools. And I want to recognize the Lynchburg First Church of the Nazarene, who dedicated their services this past Sunday to all schools in Lynchburg and surrounding counties, and recognized the students and recognized the teachers, and it was really a wonderful event, and appreciate their support. We also have support from Lynchburg Business. For those of you who have not seen this issue, this is the issue with the 2017 Millennials on the Move. And we want to recognize the fact that Chris Glover, who is the assistant principal at Dunbar, is recognized as a Millennial on the Move, and Derek Polly is also recognized as a Millennial on the Move. So congratulations for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't know. Is it okay? We okay with? Go ahead.
I want to thank Mount Carmel Church. They invited me to come speak to their back to school night last Friday, and I was able to engage with their elementary, middle, and high school students, just to give them an encouragement for coming back to school. So I wanted to thank them for inviting me, and just send another word of encouragement to those students. That's all.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Carter.
I also was part of the Fill the Bus. The Lynchburg Education Foundation and Dr. McLean and I were rallying for the cause, and it was interesting to see the number of people that just helped and were willing to help, and even the ones that had their own students in school, they were able to bring back supplies. And also just it's hopeful that I'm hopeful that just as T.C. Miller was able to increase their scores double digits, I expect the same thing for the African American students, and it's possible. I don't know whether it's the motivation or the engagement or whatever, but I'm hopeful that this year we're going to see big changes in that area. And also, just for volunteers, I know some of the Dunbar alumni want to reach out and help. So I'm going to really be looking into that and seeing how they can come aboard. These are the older Dunbar students from the school that was torn down, and their efforts and how they really want to give back and help this community and the students here, and really want to reach out to them and see what they want to do and how they can help us.
Thank you. Ms. Mason.
This is a really exciting time of year, and I was able to attend the back-to-school event at Miller Park. And thank you to Dr. McCain and Mrs. Reeves and Ms. Womack for putting together such a phenomenal event. It's always really wonderful to engage with students and parents informally. Got to have some good conversations and some fun. Also, the Mentis School plus me. I spent some time at Sandusky Middle School and Sandusky Elementary School, and the men welcomed me joining them. And it was really an amazing experience. I almost felt guilty, but it's worthwhile. And if anybody could ever participate, I strongly encourage. I think they've set the bar now that's going to challenge the women of our community to find our own niche. And maybe not infringe on their activity, but to find our own niche, because you know, you can see on the parents' and students' faces the differences that this makes. So I think we just need to do more of that engagement. So.
Okay. Thank you. Dr. Coleman?
Yes, sir. I want to underscore Ms. Reeves and Womack and everyone in that department deserves a hats off, because at the beginning of the year there's a lot of activities that are going on. She mentioned the back-to-school event. It was just sensational. And I was glad to participate from start to finish, helping load and reload and whatever I could do to be helpful to that particular event. Convocation has been mentioned. Men to School, School Board Member Mason mentioned her participation. The First Church of the Nazarene, I attended that, and they did a powerful job of encouraging their teachers and students, and that was really wonderful. And while I was there was a man there that spoke highly of our board chair, and so that was a real powerful thing. And I want to just end by saying, School Board Member Carter just mentioned, community engagement is going to be key to Dr. Massey, us dealing with what we need to do. I don't know if we necessarily need any more staff or any more things related to that, just to hold people accountable and get the community involved, from families to any aspect of the community. And it seems like we've got a phenomenal opportunity this year to get our community engaged, and I hope that we will take advantage of that. And Mr. Chair, there is one matter that
business item, sir.
Business matter. And the chair has that information, but it's relating to the Virginia School Board Association and the Southern Region. Virginia School Board Association is divided into 5 regions. We're in the Southern Region, and I was asked to consider putting my name in as a nominee for the chair of that region, which will not interfere with any of my board responsibilities in any way, shape, or form, but would really be an asset to our school board. Simply needs, Mr. Chair, for the board to acknowledge that they are aware of such and would give their blessings towards a nomination. Does not mean that I would be the person, but this is to consent that the nomination would be accepted that has been offered.
Okay. So I don't know if we need to formally vote, make a motion. Okay, so we need a motion to consider Dr. Coleman's candidacy for the Southern Region chairmanship, board chairmanship. Is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we consider Dr. Coleman's candidacy for the Southern Region.
Or we accept or allow, whatever,
Yes.
permit, yes, okay. So is there a second? Is there any additional discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay. Business matter concluded. Good luck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We're looking forward to some good feedback. Informational item, the next school board meeting is Tuesday, September 5th, here in the boardroom at 5:30 p.m. With that, we're adjourned.